Hello, you're listening to Nick Needs to Know, the podcast. Join me for 2 special episodes this South Asian Heritage Month, where I have my usual conversations joined by 2 very special guests. On this episode, I am joined by Sky News correspondent Inzamam Rashid, where we talk about his life and career, both past and present. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy. Inzi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Nick. Appreciate it.
How's your day been so far?
It's been all right, actually. I just had a massive salad from the Sky News salad bar. And being based in the north of England, we don't get to use the facilities that we have got down here in Osterley. So that was a bit of a treat, I have to admit. But I am absolutely stuffed. Broccoli and feta cheese has done me over this morning, to be fair.
Nice, yeah. Yeah, I've got some good facilities down here. We were just talking about it on my previous podcast. It's the first time I've ever been upstairs in Osterley. Yeah. Using one of these rooms. It felt like we were in like a bit of a greenhouse zoo environment. People walking past, staring in.
The weird thing right now as well is, because it's summer holidays, there's loads of kids everywhere as well.
Yeah, that's
and
what
you keep turning heads and you think there's kids running around everywhere.
Staff with the kids in, I mean, they're down at cinema downstairs, I believe, My
nightmare, really, but you're used to it, so.
I am used to it, mate. Yeah, we had a little pre-chat talking to you about my kids, and I've just had a third one, so I'm a little bit withered at the minute. So, Inzi, you work for Sky. You're a correspondent based in north of England. So, for anyone that doesn't know, that means you work on the news, and I was just speaking to you, and I'm based in Hull, and you were actually working on a story in Beverley recently.
Lovely little town. Yes. Is it a town? I think it's a town, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a town, It is a nice place. It's where people that live on the edge of Hull and not quite Beverley would say they're from Beverley.
Right, okay, It's like me. I'm from Warrington, which is, I mean, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but we just all say it's Cheshire.
Yeah.
Posh, but Cheshire. But I think it's probably actually a bit of Merseyside.
Yeah.
But Cheshire.
So you're a Scouse.
No, definitely not.
So, podcast is about careers, mindsets, lifestyles. It's mainly a chat about how you got to where you are now. So going back, if you can, to maybe when you were at school, university, and that leading into your first job, can you talk me through that and what that was like?
Well, look, when I was a kid, always, as every kid wants to stay up late past the bedtime, and my dad would only let me and my brother stay up past 9 o'clock then if we were watching the 9 o'clock news as it was back then. And that was literally the only way I could stay up. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. Watch the news almost every single night to stay up past 9 o'clock. And I became obsessed with the news. I loved it as a kid, watching the kind of, not only the kind of theatre of telling the news from the studio, but the reporting out on the streets as well, and hearing stories from not just here in the UK, but around the world. We used to watch the BBC 9 o'clock news. And so I think that's where my stem for news really kind of began. And then actually, weirdly, just recently I found a picture. An old school primary school teacher had sent me a picture of a display of stuff that we had to do in, I think it was like in year 3 or something like that. Yeah. And it was, what do you want to be when you're older? And there was a picture of me like in a jacket and a tie on and some glasses and it's like papers shuffled in front of me, and it said a news presenter.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, flipping heck, I didn't know that I'd actually, said that all those years ago.
Yeah.
And then, you flash back so many years later or flash forward so many years later, and here I am doing something that I knew I wanted to do. So the kind of idea of doing the news stemmed as a kid, and that was always my focus, I think. There was times where I was like, I could maybe be a pilot. I was like, maybe my dad tried to push me to be a lawyer. Like a typical Asian parent wanted me to do something very typical like that. Yeah. But I stuck to my guns and I was like, no, I'm going to be a journalist. I want to be a reporter, and I want to tell stories that I know need to be out there and need to be told.
Wow. And obviously did you go into college, further education after you left school?
Yeah, so did all the usual, school, high school. I had a really kind of lucky background. My dad got a job out in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East for a couple of years. So I went to a British school out there, which was just a wild experience. So a couple of years of high school I spent there, but actually it was great because you picked up so many different kind of outlooks on life. People from so many different backgrounds that I met, and that really helped me and kind of widened my horizon a bit, I think. Went to college, did A-levels, did performing arts during A-levels. I think that really helped me kind of build confidence and all that kind of stuff. Used to do a lot of kind of school performances and stuff like that. And once I was a dentist in the Little Shop of Horrors. I came home and told my mum, I was like, Mum, I'm going to be a dentist. And she was naturally really, really happy because she thought, right, he's going to go and do dentistry and forget all this artsy-fartsy performing arts stuff.
He's going to get a proper job.
Yeah, proper job. But actually, I was going to be a dentist in a musical, and then she was very disappointed about that. And then, went to university. I went to Queen's University in Belfast, which was a bit of a random one, but actually, I think I can openly admit this now. It was so far away from home that it was the only option for me. You had to get a flight or a ferry to go to Belfast from Warrington. Yeah. And I think I just wanted to be away from my parents for a bit of independence for a bit. And so that's why I went to Belfast and studied there.
And what did your parents think to that then, moving that far away?
They were...
Because obviously you're still rather young, and I think it's a transitional period for parents, that seeing the kids sort of flee the nest.
I'm quite lucky because my parents have been very open to son, go off and do your thing. My dad's worked away a lot, so that kind of distance was always there. But, we found as a family unit, communication was key, and, thank God for the telephones and video calls and all that kind of stuff. But as a family, we've often, particularly over the last kind of 10, 15 years, we have been apart quite a bit, but we've just kind of got used to it. So me going to Belfast, I don't think it was a massive thing. But I could tell my mum, she was like, why do you need to go all the way that far, And she's trying to tempt me, saying, you won't be able to have your biryani on the weekends that I can cook for you that you love so much. And that was almost the thing that kept me behind, to be fair. But no, I still went, and it was an incredible experience. It's something that I would just never, ever forget, being in a city like that. And actually, not many people look like me who studied in Belfast. Yeah. Not many young South Asians in Belfast who went to uni there. Okay, a few in the medical school, but I was doing politics, philosophy, and economics. There wasn't a single person of colour on my, my section of the course that looked like me. And, some parts of me was a bit like, that's a bit odd, but also I quite liked it because you were really kind of embracing a whole different culture, and the Northern Irish culture in comparison to, across the pond here is so different. And actually, I really, really enjoyed being there and being at that university.
And then that led on to work from there? Yeah,
I came back from Belfast and I actually started a degree in broadcast journalism at the University of Salford. And it's such an incredible place to be because whilst you're there, you're really blessed with being at Media City in Salford Quays. And there you got the BBC, you got ITV, you got so many kind of media facilities around that area. I started doing an Asian radio program, hosted the breakfast program there for a little while, did some mad, went through general elections, covered a general election, did some mad interviews with some big Bollywood stars, which was just nuts because these were people that I'd watched films of and things like that. I remember interviewing as a Bollywood star called Amitabh Bachchan, who is literally, he's like the Don of like Bollywood acting. And that interview was huge. And I was so nervous, but it was such a good opportunity. And I was, I think, what was it? 18, I was 19, maybe 19, 20 at the time doing all that. And, did all kind of all the radio stuff. And then I got a job at the BBC, freelancing initially, and then very soon got a staff job. And so I actually left my degree in broadcast journalism because the degree was teaching you how to get into the industry, what to do when you're in the industry, how to perfect being a broadcast journalist. I just got a staff job at the BBC at the age of 21, I think 21 or 22.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't think I need to do the degree anymore. I'm kind of doing what they're telling me to do in a way. And so it was a tough decision. And the uni tried to hold me back from kind of not leaving and saying, you know, make sure you get this degree under your belt. But I was certain. I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to work here at the BBC and do the job, which I know that I love doing day in, day out.
I think it's a rarity. Speaking to people that I've spoken to about their careers, often find that people go off and do their own thing in university or college, whatever, and come out and end up with a totally different career. They'll do something because it's either filling gaps or filling time, and then come out and then decide what they want to do. From the sounds of it, from the age of when you were at school, and you're dressing up as a news reporter and you've stuck to your guns, and you know, I think that's a rarity in itself.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, there were a lot of times where I was tried to, like I said, my dad tried to make me, you know, become a lawyer. He's like, you're good at maths, why don't you become an accountant? Or you're quite argumentative, why don't you become a lawyer? Well, thanks, Dad. And there were times where I was like, actually, you know, maybe like going into law is the right thing. I think it's why I kept my degree quite open as politics, philosophy, economics. But then I was like, no, watching the news, I loved anyway. Reading about the news, I loved. And the idea of telling stories, telling people stories, and broadcasting in general was something which I knew that it was my passion. It's something that I really wanted to do. And, you know, I was at university radio back in Belfast. I did university radio whilst I was in Salford. I did university TV whilst I was at Salford as well. Reported, you know, whilst I was at university as well. And then when I was actually working for a commercial radio station, it was Bauer Network first, and then moving on to the BBC. I was inside the BBC working as a journalist. I was like, yeah, this is 100% what I want to do, and I'll do whatever it takes to get up there to the highest heights.
Saying that, what is the highest heights for you? Obviously starting out, like you say, local radios or university radio stations, and then what is the peak?
It's difficult. It's difficult to say what the peak is in this career. I think we've always got aspirations, and the job that I'm doing now, I absolutely love, because this is I'm living the dream that I had as a kid. And like you said, I don't think many people actually get to say that, but I'm so lucky that I am doing what it is that I always wanted to do. And then you look further. What is it that you want to do? I want to explore more of the world. I want to tell stories from different parts of the world, from all corners of the world. And Sky gives you the opportunity to do that. It's an amazing place to work. And, you know, the news is absolutely everywhere to tell people. The thing at the very core of my becoming a journalist is I just want to tell stories of those people who don't really have their voices heard. Yeah. And I think telling those stories in an honest, in a truthful way, and delivering eyewitness reporting on the ground, you know, not being stuck in an office somewhere and telling the story from there or in the studio, being on the ground, speaking to people, interviewing people. That's truly what I enjoy doing. So it's hard to say what is the absolute peak. Right now, I totally love what I'm doing, and it feels like I'm there kind of already, and I'm just going to ride the wave for a bit.
Does that not worry you that you feel like you might be at your peak in terms of experiences with work early on in your career? Yeah,
it's an interesting question. Someone's asked me that previously, but I think that the interesting thing about news is that because the news cycle is always changing, there is going to be huge stories to come. And so when you're covering those big stories, that feels like another peak that, you know, that you're doing. If you're kind of leading the coverage on that story, you know, you're at another peak there. And then, okay, it might quieten down for a bit. And then there might be another huge story that you do. And I think that's the blessed thing about news, is that because it's so unpredictable, because you've got no idea what's coming, you know, in the next 10 minutes, let alone the next day or next week or whatever. That kind of adrenaline of something big is happening just keeps you going. And so, yeah, I think it's hard really to define what is the peak. I just feel like right now I'm doing something that I really, really enjoy doing.
Because from an outsider looking in, you would probably ignorantly, I would say somebody out reporting on the field, on the floor, their aspirations would be sat in the hot seat at 10 o'clock and facing, being the face of the news for years and years to come, like your Trevor McDonald's and stuff like that. But you've not said that.
No.
You've said you really enjoy that sort of aspect of being out there and getting those stories firsthand.
Yeah, and it's something I've always thought. And a lot of people have said to me, "Oh, do you not want to like sit in the studio and read the news and stuff?" And maybe eventually that's something that I would love to do. But the people who I really look up to, and some of them who are sat in the studio reading the news, are like Michelle Hussein at the BBC. She's someone that I really, really look up to. George Alagaya, who's recently passed away, he was a BBC newsreader, died of cancer just recently. He's someone I really looked up to. One of the first non-white foreign correspondents at the BBC. These people have been reporters. They've been out in the field. They've covered so many stories from around the world, and then they finally ended up in the studio. And yes, you kind of think maybe that is the peak sitting there, but now I just want to be out in the field. I want to be where the story is. I want to get to the very heart of the absolute story and just boots on the ground and tell it from people's perspective. We've got this incredible kind of mechanism of, you got a camera, you got a microphone, you get to wherever it is in the world, and you can share that story to millions and millions of people across not just telly, but on our phones, on social media, on, different apps and things like that. And I think that's just a really blessed device to have.
That being said, what has been your most challenging story to cover or write?
The pandemic was really difficult. I have to admit, it was a really, really difficult story because not only, our lives had changed as a nation, as a globe.
Yeah.
Our day-to-day, way of telling stories had changed, and it had become a real challenge. One thing that I found during the pandemic, and it's something that I covered extensively, was I found that people who looked like me, black, brown, Asian people, ethnic minorities, were dying of this disease in a much greater proportion than white people.
Yeah.
Particularly here in the UK. And it was something that I saw early on in the pandemic. And so it was something that I latched onto to cover. And actually, I was so passionate about that because I remember seeing the faces of healthcare workers who were dying, and they're mostly brown and Asian and black people. And I was like, what on earth is, like, what's going on? And it was something that I really, really wanted to look into. I'd lost people during the pandemic, relatives, close friends, family friends. And so I was really, really passionate about covering that story. But it was also really difficult because you can't let your personal feelings, your personal emotions of death and this disease kind of take over in your reporting. You still have to stay very professional and report, the truth, and not kick off at government for not doing, things that maybe they should have been doing a bit better. You've still got to remain professional. That was really, really tough for me, I think.
Yeah. And what has been, let's say, your most favourite subject to report on or write about?
Anything to do with cricket. I am there. I'm not the sports correspondent, but anything to do with cricket, I am there.
Yeah.
I've covered cricket returning to Pakistan.
Okay.
After a terrorist attack. So after a decade or so, cricket finally returned, and I've been lucky enough to go and cover that. I've covered Ashes test matches here in the UK. I once, and this was probably a pinnacle, I once got to go to a cricket simulator to try and find out what it was like to face one of England's fastest bowlers.
Okay.
So me, cameraman, producer, went down to I think we were in Luton, I think it was, of all places. I can say that because it's a bit of a dump because my dad's from there. But we went to this cricket simulator, and I had to face I mean, I was having a practice session.
Yeah.
And it was being filmed, and I was doing the news. I was doing the news, which I love, broadcasting, which I love, playing cricket, which I absolutely love, and it was just everything all in one. And that was a pretty cool day, I have to admit.
So no injuries from that then?
No injuries. I didn't even have a box on, and no injuries.
So if you're not a sports correspondent, then how do you get into that side of things?
Look, the blessed thing about being a general news correspondent, which I was back then, I was based in London, is that you cover a whole array of stories. Mm-hmm. You know, it can be absolutely anything. It can be breaking news on the day, get there, report what the breaking news is. It can be something that the planning department have set up. It could be something that the bosses just think, you know what, I think Inzi would do a good job at that. Let's send him to go do it. And I think that day in particular was like, yeah, he loves his cricket. You know, he's a bit of a, you know, he's a bit of a showman and stuff like that. So let's send him there, and he can make something fun of a light-hearted story.
Yeah. And work aside, what does Inzi do to relax? You're probably going to say watch cricket.
So much cricket. So much cricket. What do I do to relax? I've recently, I put on a load of weight after I got married. Got married last August. That's almost a year now. And I just got fat. Just ate loads. I don't know why, because I think, I've got the girl now, so I don't need to bother. So I've recently got back into the gym, lost about 12 kgs. Thankfully, my mum doesn't live in the country anymore. She lives in Abu Dhabi, so I'm not getting curries and rice and biryani sent over to me constantly. I'm just eating a lot healthier, and actually, you know, loving going to the gym. My brother's a personal trainer. He's not helped me once. He lives in Qatar, but you know, going to the gym has been really therapeutic. And actually, you kind of think, well, that's not relaxing, but actually, it has been for me. It's been really nice. And then, you know, just the usual stuff. It's nice because this job is so hectic sometimes. You know, you can have long days. You're on the telly. You're under a lot of pressure sometimes. You've got to work towards deadlines. And you're sometimes telling really intense stories. You know, it's a lot of death and destruction a lot of the times. And so stepping away from all that on your days off, on your holidays, is a really, really nice feeling, and just kind of stepping away from the madness, it means a lot.
And how do you step away from them? Because I'm guessing being a correspondent, I would imagine you're always switched on, or, you know, waiting for the next scoop, so to speak. Is it hard for you to switch off mentally from work?
Yeah, it's really difficult. There's no denying it, and it's really difficult. You've got to strike a balance. Like, you can't constantly be thinking about the news and thinking about your next story and trying to speak to, you know, sources and kind of people that you could potentially interview, because you've got to have a life outside of that. And it is really, really difficult. And I think as I get older and as I spend more time in this industry, I've learned to kind of get the balance right and try and just make sure that, you know, I'm giving time outside of work as well, but it's so difficult because you want to be in the mix of it, and you get FOMO, you get fear of missing out. A lot. You see a big story, you want to be part of that big story. You want to be telling it, and that's the problem with phones. Is that you got the flipping Sky News app or any other app pinging your notifications of what's going on. You got Twitter where you see stories constantly, and you're like, I want to be part of that. I could be sat on a beach somewhere on holiday and I'm still looking at my Twitter feed and thinking, flipping out, there's a news story. I want to get back and report on it.
I mean, that's why I asked, because I mean, when I was a child or younger, the news to me was 10 o'clock and probably local news around 6 o'clock, and that was it. You didn't see it for the rest of the day, or you didn't hear about it for the rest of the day. And it's quite an obsessive outlet of media nowadays, because it's 24/7, and there's numerous channels dedicated to news and what's going on, and it's just constant. Like you say, you've got your phones, Twitter, Facebook, they're all ultimately news outlets. So I find it interesting when you say that you try and switch off.
It's very hard.
It must be hard. And how does that affect your family?
Probably,
if at all?
probably a question you have to ask my wife, to be fair, but I think I could probably imagine the answer that she'd give as well. But you know, it's part of it. It's part of the job. It's part of the job, and you have to be nimble. You have to be ready to be away for some time. You've got to be ready to drop things, you know, last minute. You've got to be ready to be flexible, and a part of me really likes that aspect of the job. Maybe it's probably a bit weird to say, but actually I like being ready to react. I like being ready to jump on a breaking news story. And I have to understand I have to accept I've got a very understanding family, and people who know that this job is my passion. It's something that I've always wanted to do. It's something that I love doing day in, day out. And they're very kind of happy to let me just get on with it and make up the time when I can afterwards.
As and when.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing, because the old saying is, you know, if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Well, quite, yeah. So it feels like, yeah.
And it does come across that you are passionate about it, especially when you tell me that was one of your dreams when you were a child and you're doing it now. 2021, you was named as 30 to Watch winner.
Yep.
Did that add any pressure to your already hectic career of, you know, the expectations that were being put on you now?
It's weird, awards, you know. I've been lucky enough to win some. I've been lucky enough to be nominated and shortlisted for awards. Just this year, I was shortlisted for the Royal Television Society award. Didn't win. I lost to a very, very, very good young Ukrainian journalist who had literally been out in the battlefields and covered some incredible storytelling. She's really a massive inspiration. So, you know, wasn't really at all gutted about that. But when awards come round, for me, it spurs you on.
Yeah.
Because you're like, the industry as a whole is noticing your work, is noticing the hard work, the efforts you put in, the often long nights, sleepless nights, the working on your days off, because that is all part of this job. And so it recognizes all those efforts, the hard work you put in. But also it makes you want to go out and do more of that. So you get more recognition. So you get more awards down the line. If you didn't win that time, I want to flip and win it next year. You know, that's what it's like. I didn't win this award this time around. And I said to my bosses, I said, I want to win it next year. I want to make sure that I have the content, that I do the work, that I've given the opportunity so I can win it come next year. And, so yeah, the pressure maybe is a bit, you know, on you a bit to live up to that standard and to keep progressing, because you don't want to, you know, move up and then all of a sudden you fall down a massive slope. But it spurs you on. It really spurs you on to want to keep doing better. And
I think that's where what I was trying to say earlier is the worry of peaking too soon, too fast.
Well, thankfully, at the minute, I'm the categories of the awards that I'm coming under are still under like young journalist, because under 30.
Yeah.
And so I'm quite lucky in that perspective. After a couple of years, I can start going for the, well, you're a big serious journalist now awards. So hopefully I've got a bit of time yet.
So obviously it's South Asian Heritage Month, and this year's theme is stories to tell. And just talking in general is telling a story, and I think we've been telling a couple of stories. Well, you've been telling a couple of stories there. I wonder if you could tell me what experiences have taught you the most valuable lessons throughout your career.
I think one thing with this industry is it's quite easy to let it all get to your head. I mean, it's great fun. You're on telly, you get some amazing opportunities, you get to meet some incredible people. You know, people can often be very complimentary. People can often be very, very rude and very horrible as well. And you can often let it really, really get to you. But one thing that I've learned is surrounding myself with people that I know are going to keep me grounded and keep me humble in an industry which can, you know, make you go a bit wild. And I'm really lucky that I've had those people. And I think, there aren't many people like me, brown people in the industry who do the news. And the very few that there are, they've been absolute role models to me. I've looked up to those kind of people so much. We've got people who work at Sky News, Gillian, who's one of our presenters here. She's been here for yonks, and she's a black female presenter who has just paved the way for young people of colour who are journalists. Like I mentioned some names earlier, people from the BBC as well. And, there's a colleague of mine, Ashish Joshi, he's our health correspondent. He's been in the industry for years and years. And I remember seeing him on Sky News when I was a lot younger. And surrounding yourself with these people who have made it and who are, absolute giants in this industry, has really kept me grounded and has also kept me focused on where I can get to, growing older and becoming a more experienced journalist as well. So
do you feel a kind of pressure in a way maybe to carry that baton forward? So I think what you're trying to say there is the relatability was key to you, seeing somebody from your background, your heritage on the TV give you the drive to do that. Are you aware that you may be doing that yourself now for future generations? Yeah,
it's interesting that, Nick, because when you look at people like those people that I mentioned, they knocked down a lot of doors and barriers for me and made it a little bit easier to get to where I am today. It has not been easy. It has not been easy. I've faced, outright, I've faced racism in this industry. I've faced where people who are not people of colour have received opportunities ahead of me. I've had bosses in front of me, actively question whether I should be covering a story because of the colour of my skin or my background and things like that. And so this industry has got its issues in that respect, and I face that. But it is a lot better than what those people went through, and it is getting better. And I hope that I'm the kind of person who can help the next generation of journalists coming through who look like me, and show them that actually this is the path, this is the resilience that you've got to have, this is what you've got to do, and you've got to work extra hard. Being a person of colour in this industry, you've got to work a little bit that extra hard to get to where you want to get to. And I do it a lot. I speak to a lot of, and not just people, journalists of colour, just the next generation of journalists. To help them get through this industry, because it's really, really difficult. And that's something that I want to take on going forward. I'd help people coming out of university or wherever they're coming out of and into this industry, and just guide them a little bit, because, we want news and storytelling to carry on for as long as possible.
So maybe that could be your new peak, is seeing somebody else that you've coached, let's say, peak as well. Interesting, yeah. What moments in your life would you say have shaped who you are today? Has there been any moments that you've thought, when you look back, that was very, very much a pivotal moment for myself in personal life and in career as well?
That's really interesting that. I think there's always little kind of junctions that you think that you learn so much from. I mentioned I was at school in Saudi Arabia for 2 years. I remember just learning from so many different cultures when I was out there. It was a British school, but it was people from all over the world that were in that school. And you just learn so many different kind of backgrounds and points of view. That really, really helped me kind of really broaden my horizon. I'm really lucky that I was in that position to be able to do that. I was captain of my county's cricket team, so Cheshire County cricket team, like under 15, 16, 17s, captaining that side. That really helped me a lot, because you're in that kind of leadership role. You're really kind of directing a lot. You've got to think about teamwork as well. And I picked up so many skills going through, those kind of things. It's hard to say right, there's something that I can pin down as one thing that has really kind of shaped who I am today. I think there's been so many little things along the way that has just built up to the character that I am today. And, you know, you make mistakes, you do things which you regret. And I think I've learned a lot, particularly, you know, in the last kind of 5 to 7 years, being a journalist, working for the BBC and Sky News. You've learned so much that you just try and develop it to become not just a better journalist, a better reporter, you know, a better broadcaster, but also a better person as well. And I think the job and personal life has come hand in hand to shape where I am today. Good
answer.
Thanks. It's usually me asking the questions. So I don't know what the answers are like.
We're going to move on shortly onto quickfire questions. But before we do, is there any random facts or hidden talents that people listening may not even know about yet?
I can do this with my eyebrows, but I know you can't see when you're listening.
That's like the
Cadbury's advert. Yeah. I can bounce my eyebrows up and down. I once did that. I once did that to a woman, and I think it got me a date. I don't know why. I don't know what she thought.
You were going to say arrested.
No, I don't. No, definitely not. I don't know what she thought. If I could do those with my eyebrows, what else I could do? But I went on a date with her. That was great. I won Come Dine With Me, a TV show.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite an interesting fact.
Yeah, I won £1,000 on that show. My food I thought was rubbish.
Well, they obviously didn't.
Well, no. Yeah. I know.
Unless the others were really rubbish. Then you got best of a bad bunch.
They were pretty, yeah. 2 of them were pretty bad. Bad.
But that programme always interests me when people, first thing they do is they'll come in, say, hey, hello, give you a bottle of wine or whatever, then they're straight upstairs in your bedroom.
Yeah. Going through the knicker drawer.
Through all your stuff.
Yeah.
Does that really happen then?
It does actually happen, yeah. I remember we went to one woman's house and we were looking at all of her dresses, and she had some horrible dresses, really horrible dresses. And I was a bit brutal. I was like, they're horrible. They were really not nice. But yeah, that was an interesting thing. I did that when I was 19, 20.
Yeah.
And I won. It was kind of to show that students can cook, and we're not all kind of, you know, just eating beans and jacket potatoes and stuff like that. Pot noodles and stuff. It was actually
still available on catch-up TV, is it?
Embarrassingly, yes, it is. Also, the worst thing is that clearly Netflix got some deal with Come Dine With Me where they're all available on there. And, you know, the nation that we are, love to binge watch crappy TV like that. The amount of messages I get now, isn't that the Sky News reporter who was on Come Dine With Me? Yeah.
At least you won it. You know, at least you could take that away from me.
And I went on a date with a girl at the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah, she gave me a 10.
Yeah?
A score of a 10. No one gives anyone a 10.
No, I'm not. It's very rare.
I've never seen a 10.
Very rare.
She gave me a 10. So I was like, all right, let's go on a date.
She's seen them eyebrows moving.
Yeah, maybe.
Right, so it's time for quickfire questions. Quickfire questions. 5 questions. I say quickfire, that's just because it's a heading that I've got written down. If it takes you half an hour to answer it, that's fine. So, question number 1. Texting or talking?
Oh. Talking.
Okay.
Video calls.
FaceTiming, yeah.
FaceTime, yeah.
See, no, I can't have someone calling me like on a video randomly. I need a text first to tell me they're going to do it.
Free, yeah.
Favourite day of the week? Question number 2.
Friday.
Okay. That's surprising being a correspondent. I wouldn't say there's any structure to your week, is there?
There isn't.
Not a Monday to Friday job, is it?
It isn't at all. You know, work weekends, you've got to be ready, available whenever. Friday, I like Friday because, you know, being a Muslim, I get to kind of pray on Friday prayers. So, yeah, it's a nice kind of calming day of the week when you get the time off to pray.
Okay, question number 3. Favourite city in the UK besides the one you live in?
That's a really tough one. I'm going to go Belfast.
Belfast, okay.
Still in the UK, innit?
Yeah. Northern Ireland. Question number 4. Nickname your parents used to call you?
My mum still calls me. She calls me Inza.
Inza.
Yeah. My dad used to call me by. My dad would call me by my full name.
Okay.
The full shebang.
What, even when you want in trouble?
Yeah. Inzamam. The full thing. I was actually, another kind of fact, I was actually named after a very, very famous Pakistan cricket player. He was the captain of the Pakistan cricket team, Inzamam Rashid. Mm-hmm. And so my parents didn't even bother naming me. It was my uncle who was a cricket fanatic when I was born.
They call that cricketer Inzi as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And my uncle named me that name because he was doing, Inzamam Rashid was doing really, really well at that time. And my parents were like, fine, whatever, you can have that name. Yeah. And he was a fat cricketer. He was a huge cricketer. And so I tried not to aspire to be like him. I tried.
Okay, question number 5. The last song you downloaded.
Can I have a look?
Yeah, or streamed, because I don't think people download nowadays. It's all streamed.
I'll have to have a look. It was... Right, you're not going to know what it is. It was a Bollywood song, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, because someone who's in Pakistan sent it to me, and it's called Falak Tuk.
Falak Tuk.
Yeah, I don't actually know what that means. I can try and tell you, but it was a Bollywood song, and it's an absolute tune. But it means you can come with me to the. I don't know what it means. Walk along with me to the horizon.
Okay. You were brave there, not proofreading it before you said it could have meant anything.
It could have meant anything. Yeah, it says, walk along with me to the horizon. Which is quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of a romantic song.
Okay.
Yeah, it was nice, though. It was nice when the sun's shining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think my last song would have been something like Cocomelon or Wheels on the Bus or something like that.
Cocomelon. I've got little cousins, my cousins' kids in Pakistan. I've just been in Pakistan recently. And they are obsessed with Cocomelon. Mm. And they come and, like, the little one comes up to me. He's like, cartoon. I'm like, mate, on my phone and Cocomelon. And it's like, before on my YouTube, my most watched things were like, you suggested things were like news related things. Yeah. I came back from Pakistan, it was flipping cartoons and Cocomelon. It's like, right.
Well, that's a good way to end it. It's been brilliant talking to you, Inzi. Nice to get an insight into Sky Correspondent's daily life and what you've done to get to where you are today. Appreciate your time.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to hit that follow button and join me next time for more chats on Nick Needs to Know.